Senator Mark Kelly, a Democrat from Arizona, and a strong contender to succeed Vice President Harris as Vice President, is here to join me. I'm glad to have you here with us today, Senator. Kelly, Senator, although I am aware of how busy you have been, I would still like to know what you think of the remarks that Donald Trump made recently at his speech in Chicago. When he questioned Vice President Harris's background, it caused quite a stir. When I first saw you, Caitlin, I was shocked and disappointed. I can tell that this man is acting out of insecurity and fear by making these comments. It's clear from seeing him perform live and observing his actions throughout the previous week that he is reacting out of fear. Vice President Harris has been traversing the nation, accomplishing notable accomplishments and exhibiting a strong leadership style. He appears to be intimidated by her popularity and effectiveness, and he probably feels nervous about the idea of facing her in a debate. His remarks are an attempt to discredit her as a leader in addition to being desperate. It is unfortunate to see these kinds of strategies used in political discourse. Trump is worried about Kamala Harris. He clearly has a real concern of losing the November election against Kamala Harris. His worries about his own legacy and destiny go beyond the current political race. This response makes sense in light of the situation. Given the difficulties he confronts, it makes sense that he would be nervous. With her extensive expertise and strong record, Kamala Harris is a dangerous opponent. Her expertise as a prosecutor, her time as a district attorney, her work as attorney general, and her time spent in the Senate all contribute to her current status as vice president. She has established a reputation for expertise and leadership by carrying out her responsibilities with significant success. The disparities between Harris's and Donald Trump's records are evident and pronounced. There are notable differences in experience and methodology that are highlighted by the disparity between their professional and political backgrounds. The suggestion that Trump's reaction is a response to Harris's growing momentum is well-founded. Her rise in prominence over the past week and a half, particularly since becoming a leading figure on the ticket, has likely intensified his concerns. Her presence at the forefront of the political landscape represents a formidable challenge to his campaign, and his response may be indicative of being unsettled by her increasing influence and the threat it poses to his electoral prospects. The suggestion that Trump's reaction is a response to Harris's growing momentum is well-founded. Her rise in prominence over the past week and a half, particularly since becoming a leading figure on the ticket, has likely intensified his concerns. Her presence at the forefront of the political landscape represents a formidable challenge to his campaign, and his response may be indicative of being unsettled by her increasing influence and the threat it poses to his electoral prospects. Overall, the dynamics between these two political figures underscore a significant shift in the political landscape. Kamala Harris's credentials and momentum present a considerable challenge to Donald Trump, highlighting the stark contrast between their respective records and political trajectories. The tension and apprehension observed in Trump's actions reflect the impact of Harris's rising influence as a central figure in the election. There is no denying that she has gained substantial momentum as she travels across the country, energizing her supporters and capturing the attention of the nation. Her candidacy is not just a testament to her capabilities, but also a historic milestone in American politics. Her leadership potential promises to guide the country into a progressive and inclusive future. In stark contrast, her opponent faces significant legal challenges. He has already been convicted of a felony and is scheduled for a sentencing hearing in September. Furthermore, he is facing additional indictments for other criminal charges. These legal issues cast a shadow over his campaign and raise questions about his suitability for public office. The candidate envisions taking the country forward with policies that prioritize progress and unity. In contrast, Donald Trump seems intent on reverting to the policies and practices of his previous administration, which many view as detrimental to the well-being of Americans. The stark differences between their visions highlight the critical decision facing voters. There are clear indications that the recent statements by former President Donald Trump constitute a racist attack. His rhetoric is not only overtly racist, but also emblematic of a pattern of behavior he has exhibited throughout his political career. As the election approaches, it is expected that such divisive tactics may continue to be employed. With 97 days remaining until the election, it is crucial for voters to recognize and understand the implications of these attacks. Donald Trump's actions and words have consistently revealed his character and intentions to the American people. As the campaign progresses, the electorate will need to discern the motivations behind the rhetoric and make informed choices about the country's future direction. For the past decade, this individual has consistently employed the same tactics and strategies, a pattern that was evident even before they gained national prominence. This persistence in approach suggests a reliance on familiar methods, highlighting a lack of adaptability or innovation in their strategy. Unfortunately, this stagnation is disheartening to observe, as it reflects a limited playbook that does not evolve to meet the changing political landscape or address the diverse needs of the electorate. Despite the repetitive nature of these tactics, there is optimism for the future. Kamala Harris is anticipated to excel in upcoming debates, demonstrating her ability to challenge and outperform her opponent with clarity and substance. Her strong debating skills are expected to resonate with voters, showcasing her readiness to take on the responsibilities of leadership. Looking ahead to the presidential election on November 5th, there is confidence that Harris will secure victory and become the next president of the United States. Her potential presidency offers hope for a fresh and dynamic approach to governance, one that prioritizes progress and inclusivity. This optimism is grounded in the belief that the American people will recognize her capabilities and choose a leader who embodies the change and forward-thinking vision that the country needs. In summary, while it is unfortunate to witness an unwavering adherence to outdated strategies by some, the prospect of Kamala Harris's leadership brings a sense of hope and anticipation for a more promising future. The recent developments present a positive opportunity for the American public to engage with the ongoing political discourse. In light of the recent events, a strategic approach is essential for the Harris campaign to effectively address the situation. The Harris campaign should adopt a proactive strategy in response to the statements made today. It is crucial for the campaign to openly challenge and call out any remarks that are deemed inappropriate or misleading. This approach not only reinforces the campaign's commitment to accountability, but also highlights its dedication to upholding the integrity of political dialogue. It is unprecedented to witness a president, former president, or even a United States senator express sentiments of this nature. The current political climate has seen its share of disheartening moments, particularly during Donald Trump's tenure as president and his ongoing candidacy. Today's events add to this series of concerning developments. It is imperative for the American people to pay close attention to the rhetoric being used in the political arena. By actively listening and critically evaluating the statements made by political figures, the public can better understand the implications of such discourse on the nation's future. The Harris campaign has an opportunity to emphasize the importance of informed citizenship and the need for voters to remain vigilant and discerning. In recent political discussions, J.D. Vance, a prominent political figure and running mate to Donald Trump, has articulated a line of defense that emphasizes Trump's willingness to engage directly with black reporters at a conference. This move is positioned as an act of bravery, highlighting Trump's readiness to face potentially challenging questions in a public forum. Vance's rhetoric further extends to critique Vice President Kamala Harris, labeling her as a coward for her perceived lack of similar engagement. This narrative seeks to contrast Trump's apparent openness with Harris's approach to public interaction. In response to these criticisms, it's important to recognize Vice President Kamala Harris's active role in engaging with the American public. Over the past week, Harris has traveled extensively across the country, meeting with diverse groups of citizens and participating in various events. Her efforts demonstrate a commitment to accessibility and dialogue with the electorate. This engagement reflects a broader strategy of maintaining a visible presence and fostering direct connections with the public. The contrast between Trump and Harris in terms of public appearances and accessibility is a focal point of this discourse. While Trump is praised by his supporters for attending a specific conference and engaging with Black reporters, questions arise about the consistency of his accessibility to the broader public. Harris, on the other hand, has been actively participating in events nationwide, underscoring her dedication to being present and responsive to the needs and concerns of American citizens. The evaluation of political figures' media engagement is crucial in shaping public perception. Trump's participation in the conference, as highlighted by Vance, is framed as a significant act of bravery and openness. However, it is essential to consider the broader context of each politician's interactions with the media and the public. The duration and substance of such engagements, whether brief interviews or extended dialogues, play a critical role in defining their impact and effectiveness. In conclusion, the discourse surrounding political figures' accessibility and willingness to engage with the media and public is a complex and multifaceted issue. While Trump's defenders highlight his recent interaction as a sign of courage, Kamala Harris's continuous efforts to connect with Americans across the country emphasize her commitment to public service. Ultimately, the evaluation of these engagements should consider both the frequency and quality of interactions, recognizing the diverse strategies employed by political leaders to maintain a meaningful connection with the public. The situation surrounding the abrupt removal of a political figure from the stage underscores the volatility and unpredictability often associated with high-profile campaign events. The decision to hastily escort him off stage was reportedly driven by his campaign's apprehension about potential negative remarks that might have been forthcoming. This swift conclusion to his appearance highlights the delicate balancing act that campaign teams must perform in managing public perception and controlling the narrative surrounding their candidates. In contrast, Kamala Harris emerges as a forward-thinking candidate who embodies a vision for the country's future. Her policy agenda is centered around addressing some of the most pressing issues faced by Americans today. Harris is committed to tackling the exorbitant costs of prescription drugs, striving to make medications more accessible and affordable for all. Additionally, she aims to alleviate the financial burden of childcare, recognizing it as a critical factor in supporting working families and fostering economic stability. Moreover, Harris is dedicated to reducing healthcare costs, ensuring that essential medical services are within reach for every American. Her focus on these issues reflects a broader commitment to enhancing the quality of life for citizens and promoting social equity. In stark contrast, Donald Trump's policy priorities appear to diverge significantly. His agenda emphasizes further tax cuts for billionaires and the largest corporations, suggesting a continuation of economic policies that favor the wealthiest segments of society. This clear distinction in policy goals underscores the ideological divide between the two political figures, with Harris advocating for initiatives that prioritize the welfare of the general populace, while Trump's policies seem to cater to the interests of affluent individuals and powerful corporate entities. This juxtaposition of policy priorities invites reflection on the broader implications for the country's future direction and the values that will guide its progress. If Donald Trump were to become president again, it is anticipated that his administration would significantly weaken the alliances that the United States has carefully built with other nations. Strong international alliances are crucial for maintaining global stability, fostering economic cooperation, and ensuring collective security. Trump's previous approach to foreign policy often involved a more isolationist stance, which raised concerns about the potential erosion of these vital relationships. Furthermore, Trump's presidency could pose a serious threat to women's fundamental rights, particularly regarding reproductive health and autonomy. There is a deep-seated concern that under his leadership, there would be further rollbacks on reproductive rights, including access to birth control, in vitro fertilization, IVF, and the broader right to choose. These rights are essential for ensuring that women can make informed decisions about their bodies and futures without government interference. Reflecting on Trump's past statements and policies, it is not surprising that there is apprehension about the implications of his potential return to power. The consequences of another 4 years under his administration could include further erosion of reproductive rights, undermining decades of progress made in gender equality and women's health. As someone who is deeply invested in the well-being of future generations, I have 2 daughters and a granddaughter. I find myself increasingly worried about the direction this country could take if Trump were to regain power. The impact on women's rights would not only affect my family, but also millions of women across the nation. It is crucial to consider the long-term effects that such policies could have on the opportunities and freedoms available to women in the United States. The prospect of Trump having any influence or power again raises serious concerns about the future trajectory of the country. It is essential to engage in discussions and actions that safeguard the rights and freedoms that are fundamental to a just and equitable society. We must remain vigilant and proactive in protecting the rights of women and ensuring that international alliances are strengthened rather than weakened. It's important to recognize that such a scenario is unlikely because Kamala Harris is an exceptional candidate and a formidable leader. She represents a promising future for the presidency of the United States. Turning to the topic of potential vice presidential selections, it is noteworthy that you have been mentioned as a possible choice for this position. It's understood that your team has received vetting materials as part of this consideration process. Could you provide insight into the progress of your discussions with Harris's team regarding this opportunity? In response, I must refrain from providing specifics at this time. It's not appropriate to delve into these details, especially on a day like today when the focus should be on broader issues rather than personal matters. Today's focus should remain on Donald Trump and his current state. It's disheartening to observe his transformation into a figure who appears both pitiable and desperate. This characterization is not unfamiliar. Many of us have encountered individuals who exhibit similar traits. In Trump's case, he now seems to belong to a category of desperate individuals who, driven by their own legal troubles, lash out in frustration. Do you think you would be able to effectively present the argument you've made here on a larger national platform should you be chosen for the position? Well, I would certainly be prepared to discuss the dynamics between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris at length. In fact, it's a topic I find quite straightforward to address. Comparing these two figures is relatively simple, especially given the stark contrasts between them. From my perspective, it's one of the most uncomplicated issues I've encountered during my time in the United States Senate. The differences are so pronounced that articulating them becomes an almost effortless task. It's evident to the American public how the situation has unfolded. Senator Mark Kelly, we appreciate your presence and insights this evening. Thank you for joining us, Caitlin. In the studio now, we have a distinguished panel. Joining me are former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and Errol Lewis, CNN political commentator and Spectrum News host. I believe she managed the situation exceptionally well. Consider this. When faced with an opponent who engages in behavior that is so flagrantly outrageous, deeply inappropriate, and blatantly manipulative with racial overtones, the best course of action is often to rise above it. By maintaining composure and not reacting impulsively, she demonstrated a level of maturity and strategic thinking. Her response reflected a commitment to a vision of a more constructive and unified America, rather than descending into the fray of divisive rhetoric. Her approach allowed her opponent to remain entrenched in their own problematic tactics, which can be seen as a form of self-sabotage. Meanwhile, she chose to focus on presenting a positive and forward-looking narrative, which is both dignified and strategically sound. Furthermore, I must commend Mark Kelly's succinct description of the situation. His characterization of the opponent as a desperate convicted felon lashing out is both striking and insightful. This portrayal captures the essence of the current climate within Trump's sphere, marked by a palpable sense of desperation. Kelly's words effectively encapsulate the urgency and turmoil that seems to be driving the opponent's recent actions, providing a powerful and compelling summary of the ongoing dynamics. To start, Mr. Mayor, let's examine the situation from a political perspective. How do you assess Vice President Harris's response to the events of the evening? What are your thoughts on her handling of the issue? It seems that the current political climate has taken an unexpected turn, revealing a level of disarray among media outlets. The situation has highlighted a significant gap in their preparedness for dealing with a candidate who, while reasonably popular, presents a departure from the norm. This departure is marked by a stark contrast to the more predictable political landscape they were accustomed to. Historically, newsrooms have been familiar with figures like Joe Biden, whose popularity has seen fluctuations. Biden, once a prominent contender in a race against Hillary Clinton, faced various challenges that affected his standing. This familiarity with past political figures who encountered issues has left newsrooms somewhat ill-equipped to handle a new and relatively dynamic candidate. The current situation, representing a brand new day, seems to have caught them off guard. Today's media environment appears to be grappling with this shift, with many newsrooms seemingly captivated and unsure of how to respond. The intensity of the reaction, with newsrooms being metaphorically glued to their screens, suggests a sense of urgency and bewilderment. This momentous occasion has elicited a response reminiscent of 2015, evoking memories of a time when the media faced similar challenges and uncertainties. The comparison to 2015 highlights how current events echo past experiences, reinforcing the notion that the media's struggle to adapt to changing political dynamics is not new. The situation underscores a broader challenge within the media landscape, adapting to and managing new and unpredictable political phenomena. The contrast between past and present political figures and the subsequent media response reveals the ongoing evolution of political reporting and the need for newsrooms to continuously adapt their strategies. This moment serves as a reminder of the complex interplay between politics and media and the necessity for media outlets to remain agile and responsive to the evolving political environment. Donald Trump is once again employing some of the familiar strategies that marked his early rise to prominence on the national stage. He is engaging in behavior designed to shock and provoke, deliberately pushing the boundaries of conventional political discourse. By making statements that are deliberately provocative and outrageous, Trump is effectively breaking away from established norms and traditional limits of political conversation. This tactic of challenging the status quo and defying expected boundaries has historically been a hallmark of Trump's approach. It is a calculated move designed to capture media attention and dominate the news cycle. His ability to generate controversy and stir reactions has often propelled him to the forefront of public and media discussions. In the current context, Trump's latest remarks or actions appear to be a deliberate attempt to create a splash and ensure that he remains a focal point in the media. His approach suggests a clear understanding of the media dynamics and how to leverage them to maintain visibility. Without such dramatic or controversial statements, it is likely that Trump's presence in the news would be significantly diminished. As we approach the election, with just 97 days remaining, the timing of these provocative moves is strategic. By ensuring that he remains a central topic of conversation, Trump aims to influence public perception and keep himself relevant in the lead-up to the election. This tactic underscores his ongoing strategy of staying in the spotlight and shaping the narrative in his favor. As early voting approaches in Arizona, which is set to begin in just 70 days, it's clear that we are entering a critical phase where every news cycle holds significant weight. In today's fast-paced media environment, it is imperative for candidates to remain prominent within the news cycle. Otherwise, they risk being overshadowed and losing crucial public attention. In this context, Donald Trump's recent behavior appears to be a strategic move aimed at reasserting his presence and relevance. It seems that Trump is employing provocative statements or actions as a means to re-enter the spotlight and recapture media focus. This approach can be interpreted as a reaction to a particularly challenging period for him, marked by a series of unfavorable developments. Over the past week, Trump has faced considerable setbacks. His opponent has managed to generate considerable momentum, engaging hundreds of thousands of supporters through virtual events and raising an impressive $200 million. In contrast, Trump has struggled to compete with this level of enthusiasm and financial support. His efforts to regain visibility through bold or controversial statements can be seen as an attempt to counterbalance the significant advantages his opponent has secured. In essence, Trump's actions reflect a desperate bid to realign himself within the competitive landscape of the campaign, striving to regain lost ground and reassert his influence in a highly dynamic and competitive electoral environment. The remarkable achievements of the recent Republican National Convention, despite their initial impact, have largely faded from public memory. What was once a significant event is now considered yesterday's news. In an effort to regain prominence and influence, the individual in question is resorting to his familiar tactics, making provocative, outlandish, and often factually inaccurate statements. This approach is evident in his latest efforts to stay relevant. For example, at a recent Trump rally, which followed a high-profile event he attended, an attention-grabbing display was featured. The rally included a screen showcasing headlines that misrepresented Kamala Harris's identity by labeling her as Indian American. While Harris's heritage is indeed multifaceted, encompassing both Indian and American aspects, the reductionist headlines do not reflect the full complexity of her identity. Harris herself has openly discussed her dual heritage, highlighting her Indian American background as well as her broader American identity. The use of such misleading headlines serves not only to provoke, but to distract from substantive discourse. It underscores a broader strategy of generating controversy and inflaming public sentiment as a means of recapturing media attention and political relevance. In essence, the individual's strategy revolves around leveraging sensationalism and misinformation to re-enter the spotlight. This tactic contrasts sharply with the substantive achievements of the convention, which have been overshadowed by the ensuing controversy and provocative statements. We have previously discussed the historic significance of Kamala Harris's achievement in becoming vice president. This milestone represented a major moment in American political history, highlighting the progress towards diversity and representation at the highest levels of government. However, the focus now shifts to the current political landscape and the reactions to Harris's achievements. Tonight, at a rally, there is an evident strategic emphasis on this historic accomplishment. The rally appears to be leveraging Harris's role to galvanize support and underscore the administration's commitment to progressive values. This move illustrates how political events can be used to reinforce key messages and rally voter support. Turning to Donald Trump's current situation, it's worth noting Errol's observation about the impact of being largely ignored. For Trump, who has thrived on constant media attention and public engagement, the experience of being sidelined is profoundly unsettling. This emotional and psychological challenge is arguably one of the most significant stressors for him. The lack of attention disrupts his accustomed dynamics of influence and visibility, which he has traditionally relied upon to maintain his prominence and shape public discourse. In essence, Trump's reaction to being overlooked underscores a critical aspect of his personality and political strategy. Ignoring him, as a tactic, disrupts his ability to control the narrative and diminishes his impact, creating a situation that is particularly disorienting and challenging for him to navigate. When discussing the notion of racial authenticity, it is profoundly misleading and incorrect to claim that someone is not genuinely representing their racial identity. This assertion is particularly striking given that the campaign in question, only a few weeks ago, was actively seeking to appeal to Black voters, especially Black men, to support their cause. The contradiction here is stark. While the campaign has been working to gain support from the Black community, it simultaneously undermines a prominent Black figure's authenticity. Despite the campaign's efforts to connect with Black voters, there is an observable increase in support for the opposing side, which is a troubling sign for them. The campaign's strategy seems flawed, especially considering the challenges faced by Joe Biden and the observed shifts in support within the Black and Latino communities. This drift represents a significant area of concern that needs addressing. The act of attacking a Black woman's authenticity, while simultaneously seeking to win over Black voters, reveals a profound disconnect and insensitivity towards the community. Such attacks not only undermine the credibility of the campaign, but also signal to the community that the campaign is out of touch with their experiences and concerns. This approach appears to be self-sabotaging, as it alienates the very demographic they are trying to court. Additionally, it is important to recognize that the issue of racial identity and authenticity has been a part of public discourse for years. For example, in her book,